How do we overcome our adversaries? Do we smack them with a cast iron pan? Do we accost them on stage when they insult our wife, as we saw recently? But how are we supposed to overcome the very adversaries that stand against us, the overwhelming odds that stand against us? Perhaps there's a better way. And we're going to find out today from Joshua in Joshua chapter 5 and 6. Good morning. I'm Pastor Rini. Welcome to 747 Morning Inspiration. So glad you joined us. And today we're going to talk about how God spoke to Joshua to help him overcome overwhelming odds. He has just passed over into the promised land, and he meets some angelic host. In Joshua chapter 5, let me read to you what this encounter is in Joshua chapter 5. When Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man was standing before him with his drawn sword in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him, "Are you for us or for our adversaries?" And he said, "No, but I am the commander of the army of the Lord. Now I have come." And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped and said to him, "What does my Lord say to his servant?" And the commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, "Take off your sandals from your feet, for the place we are standing is holy." And Joshua did so. So the first thing that we notice is that Joshua had this experience with the commander of the Lord's army. Some angelic being of some kind was sent to interact with Joshua to prepare him to hear the voice of the Lord of how to overcome insurmountable odds of conquering the city of Jericho. This was the first and greatest obstacle for Joshua. After the parting of the Jordan, now the greatest fortified city in all of Canaan is the first one God wants to give to him. And God wants to show Joshua how it's done. Verse 1 of chapter 6. Let's continue. Now Jericho was shut up inside and outside because of the people of Israel. Right? They knew the people of Israel were coming. None went out and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have given Jericho into your hand, with its king and mighty men of valor. You shall march around the city, all the men of war going around the city at once. Thus you shall do for 6 days. 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. On the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. And when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, when you hear the sound of the trumpet, then all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat. And the people shall go up, everyone straight before him." So there we go. That's God's plan of overcoming a mighty city. Basically, take your armed men and don't do any fighting. Take your armed men and for 6 days walk around the fortified city, which, by the way, Jericho was fortified with a lower wall and a higher wall. It's a city that's very low. It has springs all around it. It's also called the city of palm trees. And so the people were shut up inside. There was no need to come out. They had plenty of resources inside, so a long siege would not have worked. But God's plan seems impossible and implausible, impractical, and quite frankly, to the leader, kind of embarrassing. Can you imagine being the military leader saying, "Yeah, listen, here's the plan. That city's filled with thousands of people. It's the most fortified city in all of Canaan. We've got to get it out of the way to get to the rest of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to blow horns for 6 days. And we're going to walk around it 7 times on the last day and blow horns. And the walls are going to miraculously fall to the ground, making a perfect ramp. We can walk up and take the city." Nothing about that would make me feel comfortable. And I can't imagine it would help you feel comfortable either. Yet that was the command of the Lord. So as an ambassador of Christ, as a Christian, as someone who is an heir to the kingdom, we have got to be able to do two things first. One, seek the face of God with our problems. Seek the face of God with the issues that are overwhelming to us, relationships and burdens, anxieties and fears and worries and finances and all of it. Seek the face of God first. And secondly, have faith that what God tells you to do is the right thing to do. And it is exactly what he does. He does this whole thing, and then it says in verse 15, on the seventh day they rose early at the dawn of the day, and marched around the city in the manner 7 times. It was only on that day they marched around the city 7 times. Okay, again, put yourself in Joshua's shoes. By the end of the 6th day, where they had been marching around the city 6 times, can you imagine the grumbling and the complaining in the troops? Just what would you say? Okay, this guy Joshua, he's not right in the head. This guy Joshua, for 6 days we've walked around this stupid city. What makes us think on the 7th day something's going to happen? And to make matters worse, it's the 7th day and now we got to do it 7 times. I can just imagine in the back of my head how strong and courageous Joshua had to be while the people were on the 7th march around the city on the 7th day. This is why God kept saying to Joshua, be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. He was about to see the deliverance and salvation of the Lord. Verse 16. And at the 7th time, when the priest had blown the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, shout, for the Lord has given you the city, and the city and all that's in it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who with her shall be saved. So remember, there was a prostitute that hid the spies when the spies went in to go check out Jericho and the tens of thousands of people that were in the city. So because Rahab sheltered the spies, they were to go in, destroy the city, but protect her and her family and her lineage forever. Because when you overcome your adversaries, you overcome adversaries not just for you, but to free the people you're leading. Joshua had to overcome Jericho as the adversary to free the Israelites to receive the promised land and to free Rahab, who was held as a cult prostitute and supported her family by selling her body. God was going to deliver her for her righteousness and actually change the dynamic of her life so that she actually gains entry into the ancestry of King David and the Messiah himself. So, he says, go in, don't take any of the goods. All the spoils belong to God. That's the first fruit of God's deliverance, which is another thing. If you want to be a leader that leads people, if you want to overcome your adversaries, it can't be for your selfish gain and your selfish ambitions. Joshua knew this was unto the Lord, and this was to protect God's people. Joshua didn't do it because of selfish ambition, but because of an overwhelming desire to serve the one true God. He knew when they conquered the city, he would not be able to take any spoils at all of the spoils, all of the wealth, gold, silver, everything was given to the Lord's house in honor of God's deliverance. And it says, verse 20, so the people shouted and the trumpets were blown. So the people, as soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted a great shout, and the wall fell down flat. So the people went into the city, every man straight before him, and they captured the city. As they have unearthed the walls of Jericho in the most recent archaeological digs, they have discovered the upper walls were built of red brick, and when they fell, They fell and created a ramp, a literal clay ramp that the Israelites could easily walk into the city to overcome the city. And the remnants of the red brick are still there to this day, where the walls fell and created this ramp for the Israelites to get easy access. And they went in, they saved Rahab, and they completely took the city. So it says, so the Lord, and at the end of the chapter, verse 27, so the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was within all the land. The Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land. So what did he do? What can we do to overcome our adversaries? What can we do to overcome our adversaries? Number one, Joshua sought the face of God. Joshua listened for God's voice. Joshua, by faith, cast the vision to his people. Joshua, by faith, stayed strong and courageous and did what God said to do. Joshua, by faith, allowed God to do the miracle, and then he finished the job by conquering the city. And Joshua took no spoils for himself. He gave them all as first fruits to God, to say thank you to God. So he didn't do it out of selfish ambition. He did it to serve God. He did it to release the Israelites for the promised land. And he did it to save Rahab and her family from the bondages of having to sell herself as a sex slave in that city. Everything he did was to glorify God, and nothing was out of selfish ambition. Let us check our hearts today. Do we want to be used by God? Do we want him to use us in mighty ways? Then let's check our ambition, our personal selfishness at the door, and remember, we are here to glorify God. Give God the first fruits of all that we have. And remember, let's consider others as higher than ourselves. Well, I hope that helped you today with how to overcome great obstacles, great adversaries. And we'll see you tomorrow morning at 7:47. I love you all. See you soon.